You wake up before the sun, not because you want to, but because you have to. Your mind is already racing with tasks, responsibilities, and unpaid emotional bills, stacking up like bricks on your chest. Marriage was supposed to be a partnership, but somewhere along the way, it became a contract you never fully read. You lean over and kiss your wife on the forehead, not out of love, but habit. Quietly get dressed, while she sleeps peacefully, unaware of the mental weight you carry and the exhaustion she doesn't see. The man who once had freedom, ambition, and energy has become a machine that keeps the household running, solves problems, handles crises, and never stops. Not broken, not defeated, just drained in ways no one notices. At work, the expectation is clear. Lead, deliver, fix, handle, smile, switch hats seamlessly. Husband, father, provider, protector. Never a pause, never a breath. You return home, and instead of rest, the list grows longer. Dishes, groceries, decisions, errands, responsibilities. No one asks how you are, and even if they did, what would you say? You've forgotten the feeling of being asked, of being cared for, of having someone simply listen. You've become the donkey of the household, steady, silent, burdened, and taken for granted. You're not angry, you're numb, and you wonder if this is how life will always feel. No freedom, no space, only expectations you never agreed to. You used to dream. You had goals, ambitions, a spark. Now you survive. This isn't weakness, it's not failure. It's the slow erosion of a man's spirit under invisible pressures. The most dangerous part is that you carry it alone. You think this is what strength looks like. Silent endurance, stoic suffering, never asking for help. But enduring silently without reflection or support is not strength. It's slow destruction. In this video, we're going to explore the 6 reasons so many men feel trapped after marriage, uncovering hidden pressures, subtle manipulations, and unspoken expectations that crush men's freedom and identity. When we don't talk about it, when we don't name it, it continues alone, unchecked, invisible. It's time to pull back the curtain, to see clearly, to understand why this happens, and most importantly, how to protect yourself, your mind, your spirit, and your future. Surviving isn't living, and life was never meant to feel like this. Number 1, loss of freedom and personal identity. Before marriage, your life was your own. You made choices based on what you wanted, when you wanted, and how you wanted. Your mornings started with your routines. Your evenings ended with your hobbies. Your weekends were for your friends, your passions, your dreams. Your identity was clear. You knew who you were, what you wanted, and where you were going. You had freedom, the freedom to think, act, and live without constantly measuring every move against someone else's expectations. But after marriage, everything begins to change. Your time is no longer entirely yours. Your schedule is shared, your decisions are negotiated, and even your sleep becomes a battlefield of compromise. You cancel the gym to help with dinner. You skip a night out with friends because it causes arguments. You stop pursuing projects, hobbies, and passions that once energized you because they no longer fit the household rhythm or because they are dismissed as unimportant. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to shrink. Pieces of yourself are trimmed away to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, or simply to meet the endless needs and expectations placed upon you. Over time, your identity is no longer distinct. You are no longer the man who chased dreams, explored passions, and lived fully. Instead, you become a collection of obligations, duties, and compromises. You look in the mirror and see a man you barely recognize, a man who has been molded by the expectations of others, rather than his own desires. You feel a quiet emptiness because the person staring back is not fully you. It is the version left after everyone else has taken their share. You've lost the spontaneity, the drive, the individuality that once defined you. Your sense of freedom is gone, replaced by a cycle of responsibilities, emotional labor, and silent sacrifices. You may not even notice the change at first, because it happens in fragments, in small decisions, in tiny daily adjustments. But the cumulative effect is staggering. The man who once knew himself now feels like a shadow, a hollow version of who he was. And the worst part is, this loss is not always dramatic. There are no sudden tragedies or explosive fights that mark the moment. It's quiet, insidious, and gradual. It sneaks in through routine, expectation, and unspoken obligations, leaving you wondering how you ended up so small in a world that once felt vast. Protecting your freedom and identity after marriage is not selfish. It's essential. Recognizing the slow erosion of self is the first step to reclaiming your life before it disappears entirely. Number 2. The pressure of being the provider. Society still expects men to provide, protect, and endure without complaint, and marriage only magnifies that pressure. You don't just earn money. You are expected to earn respect, stability, and love through constant performance. Every paycheck, every promotion, every decision is silently measured against the invisible standard of what a real man should be. If you're tired, it's seen as weakness. If you express fear, doubt, or uncertainty, it's perceived as failure. So you keep showing up, day after day, even when your body and mind are exhausted, even when the weight of responsibility feels crushing. You take overtime, skip sleep, and sacrifice rest, because the household, the bills, and the expectations cannot wait. You carry the financial stress quietly, hiding anxiety behind a mask of competence, because you believe that's what a good man is supposed to do. You wake up thinking about how to make ends meet, how to ensure security for your family, and how to meet expectations that are never clearly stated, but always felt. And yet, the more you give, the less visible your struggle becomes. No one notices how heavy the burden feels, because you've been carrying it so long, so steadily, that it seems effortless to others. Not because people are cruel, but because you have been too strong for too long. You have normalized exhaustion, disguised it as responsibility, and turned your own endurance into invisibility. You smile, you lead, you protect, and inside, the well is dry. Every choice, every sacrifice, every sleepless night chips away at your energy, your spontaneity, your joy, and your sense of self. And even as the pressure mounts, you feel compelled to meet it silently, because asking for help feels like admitting defeat, and failure is unacceptable in a world that equates your value with your ability to carry weight. This is the hidden cost of being the provider. The physical fatigue, the mental strain, and the emotional isolation that comes from bearing burdens alone. And yet, you continue, driven by duty, love, and the unspoken rules of masculinity, unaware that the real strength lies not in unbroken endurance, but in recognizing your limits, valuing your own well-being, and reclaiming the parts of life and self that get lost under constant pressure. Because no matter how much you give, if you lose yourself in the process, you lose everything. Number 3, emotional disconnect and silence. Men aren't taught to talk. We're taught to fix, to solve, to endure, to handle problems quietly without complaint. But marriage is not a problem to fix. It's a relationship to feel, and that distinction is one too many men never learn. When emotions arise, we instinctively shut down. Anger, sadness, fear, disappointment all become inconvenient intrusions that must be managed internally. We avoid conflict, hoping that silence will keep the peace, hoping that if we don't speak, nothing will explode, nothing will go wrong. At first, it works, and everyone praises the calm, steady man who never raises his voice and never complains. But silence is deceptive. Over time, it becomes distance. Walls that started as protection grow taller, thicker, and heavier. You stop talking, and then you stop connecting. You are physically present in the home, at the dinner table, in the bedroom, but your mind and heart are elsewhere, behind an invisible barrier no one can breach. You crave affection, attention, intimacy, and understanding, but you don't know how to ask for them without feeling exposed or vulnerable. You want to be seen, truly heard, truly loved, yet your words stay trapped behind your pride, your fear of judgment, and your desire to appear strong. Conversations that once felt easy now feel risky. A simple disagreement can trigger hours of internalized self-blame and rumination. And so, the quiet suffering continues. You tell yourself, this is strength. You call endurance resilience. You believe that staying silent is protecting the relationship, when in reality, it is eroding it. Emotional disconnect doesn't happen overnight. It is the accumulation of unspoken words, suppressed feelings, and unresolved tensions. Every day, you build a wall between yourself and your partner, thinking it shields you, but what it actually does is isolate you. And isolation is heavy. It's heavy in the chest, in the mind, and in the soul. You long for connection, yet you are trapped in a cycle where the fear of vulnerability prevents intimacy, and the lack of intimacy reinforces the fear. You watch yourself retreat, slowly, silently, wondering why affection feels distant and love feels conditional. And the cruelest part is that this suffering is invisible. Friends, colleagues, even family may never see the quiet torment behind the composed exterior. You endure it alone, labeling it as stoicism, resilience, or strength, unaware that the real strength is in expression, in connection, in being willing to risk rejection or judgment, to have your feelings acknowledged. Emotional disconnect in marriage is a silent thief, stealing joy, closeness, and mutual understanding, and it leaves you exhausted, lonely, and emotionally numb. Yet it is reversible if you recognize the pattern, confront the silence, and learn to communicate, to express, and to reconnect. Until then, you suffer silently, believing endurance is virtue, when in fact, it is the slow erosion of your heart and the quiet surrender of your emotional life. Number 4, changed priorities, lost dreams. Before marriage, your dreams were loud, blazing, impossible to ignore. You wanted to build, to create, to explore, to lead. You woke up with purpose, fueled by ambition and the thrill of possibility. Every day was an opportunity to grow, to chase goals, to carve your mark into the world. Your vision of the future was vivid, and every decision was colored by the fire of your desires. But after marriage, those dreams begin to fade into the background, not because you gave up, but because you gave in. You start making practical choices, the kind that keep peace, avoid conflict, and maintain a semblance of stability. You downsize your ambitions, convince yourself that compromises are maturity, and tell your inner fire to wait, even though it burns quietly in the corners of your mind. You settle in ways you never imagined you would, trading bold goals for incremental safety, energy for predictability, and passion for routine. Deep down, though, you feel the loss. You miss waking up with excitement about your life. Miss the sense of possibility that made you feel alive. Miss the spark that once made every day feel like an adventure. Now, your life revolves around survival. Bills, responsibilities, schedules, obligations. And there's little room for the creative, ambitious, vibrant version of yourself that used to dream freely. The man you were, the one who chased fire, who imagined big, who took risks, is slowly being replaced by a version molded by expectation, compromise, and necessity. Every time you tell yourself, "This is maturity," you silence a part of yourself, a part that still longs to feel alive, to achieve, to make an impact. And the danger is subtle. At first, it feels like stability, like responsibility, like being a good partner or provider. But over time, the quiet resignation turns into emptiness. You look back and realize that what you've preserved, comfort, routine, predictability, has come at the cost of your identity, your energy, and your dreams. A man without passion is not truly living. He is a shadow of the person he was meant to be, a hollow version of the vibrant, ambitious self he once carried, with pride and excitement. The spark may still exist somewhere beneath the layers of compromise, but it flickers weakly against the weight of obligations and the quiet erosion of your aspirations. Reigniting it requires recognition, courage, and a willingness to reclaim what you have allowed to fade into practicality. Without it, life becomes merely about going through motions, surviving each day without the fire that once defined your purpose, and settling for a quiet existence that feels safe but is ultimately unfulfilling. To regain that energy, that fire, and that sense of purpose, you must acknowledge what has been lost, understand why you let it slip, and make deliberate choices to reintroduce passion, vision, and personal ambition back into your life before it disappears entirely. Number 5. Societal expectations of masculinity. Be tough, be strong, never cry, never need. That's what society teaches men from the moment we can walk and talk. And marriage doesn't change that. It amplifies it. Suddenly, you're not only expected to manage your own responsibilities, emotions, and ambitions, but also to carry your wife's emotional weight, to be her rock, even when your own foundation feels like it's crumbling. You are expected to hold her when she breaks, comfort her when she's upset, and never reveal that you too are struggling, that you too feel fear, sadness, or exhaustion. Vulnerability is unacceptable. Weakness is a crime. No one applauds the man who quietly endures, who sacrifices without recognition, who keeps the household running, who supports and protects, while silently battling the weight of unspoken expectations. No one sees the long nights, the sleepless mornings, the mental strain, or the constant self-policing required to maintain the facade of strength. You begin to measure your worth not by who you are, but by what you provide. The stability, the protection, the money, the solutions, the emotional availability you offer at the cost of your own needs. And slowly, invisibly, it eats away at you. The man who once had passions, desires, and freedom becomes a shadow, defined only by performance and duty, and emptied of self. Emotional exhaustion sets in quietly, often unnoticed, because asking for help, showing fear, or admitting struggle is seen as failure. The pressure of masculinity is relentless. Every day you reinforce the belief that to be a man is to endure, to sacrifice, and to suppress emotion, while the recognition, gratitude, or reciprocity for these efforts rarely arrives. And the cruelest part is that you begin to internalize it. You believe your worth is conditional, tied only to your ability to withstand, to give endlessly, and to hold it all together without faltering. You forget that being a man does not mean being unfeeling, unbreakable, or invisible. That real strength is measured not by how much you can endure silently, but by how authentically you can engage with life, express your needs, and protect your own heart while loving others. Yet the expectations persist, relentless and silent, eroding your spirit faster than any failure could, leaving you hollowed, exhausted, and questioning whether your existence is valued for who you truly are, or only for what you can deliver. This is the quiet weight of masculinity amplified by marriage, a constant, invisible pressure that demands endurance, perfection, and emotional suppression, and it drains a man faster than anything else ever could, leaving behind a version of himself he barely recognizes. A man who gives endlessly, but receives little acknowledgement, care, or understanding, and who slowly begins to wonder if strength is worth the cost of losing his own identity in the process. Number 6. Isolation and silent suffering. You stop reaching out to friends. You stop opening up. You tell yourself no one will understand, that sharing your thoughts or struggles will only make you feel weaker or more exposed. You scroll past posts, laugh at memes about miserable husbands, but deep down, each joke stings because it's painfully real. You've accepted loneliness as normal, convincing yourself that this isolation is simply part of life, part of being a man, part of being married. You think you're the only one feeling this way, the only one quietly enduring, the only one carrying the invisible weight of expectation, responsibility, and suppressed emotion. But the truth is, you are not alone. Thousands of men feel exactly like you do, yet they suffer silently, trapped in the same cycle of unspoken struggles and quiet despair. You carry the weight like a donkey, not because you want to, but because no one taught you there was another way. No one showed you that vulnerability is not weakness, that seeking support does not make you less of a man, and that emotional connection is essential for survival, not a luxury. You've been conditioned to believe endurance is strength, silence is resilience, and suffering alone is the mark of a responsible husband or provider. And so, you continue to bear burdens quietly, masking exhaustion, stress, and longing behind a composed exterior. You smile when expected, lead when required, and solve problems that never end, all while the emotional cost piles up, invisibly inside. Every day, the isolation deepens, the silence grows heavier, and the loneliness becomes a quiet companion, ever present, reminding you that your struggles are unseen, unacknowledged, and unshared. Yet, there is a hidden truth here. The suffering doesn't have to be permanent. Recognizing the isolation, naming it, and understanding that you are not alone is the first step toward reclaiming connection, support, and emotional freedom. You can learn to carry less, to reach out, to find men who understand, and to accept that expressing pain does not diminish strength. It restores it. Until then, the silence continues, and you remain the unseen burden bearer, enduring in quiet, wishing someone would see the weight you carry and validate the hidden struggles that define your day-to-day life. Marriage doesn't have to feel like this. It doesn't have to be a prison of expectations, obligations, and silent suffering. It can be partnership, a true collaboration between two people who respect, support, and uplift each other. It can be love, not labor, a shared journey instead of a constant grind that drains your energy, your spirit, and your identity. But it starts with honesty, honesty with yourself, with your partner, and with the life you want to live. You have to speak, to stop pretending that everything is fine when inside you are struggling. You have to stop masking exhaustion, frustration, and longing behind a calm, composed exterior that hides the truth of what it feels like to carry everything silently. You have to show up, not just as the provider, not just as the man who earns, fixes, and protects, but as a man with needs, emotions, and dreams. A man who remembers that being fully alive means embracing vulnerability, seeking connection, and refusing to let your identity be eroded by expectation. Your wife doesn't need a donkey, someone who quietly carries burdens without complaint, someone who sacrifices all joy and selfhood in service of obligation. She needs a man who is awake, alive, whole, and capable of loving without losing himself. And you deserve to be him, to reclaim your passions, your voice, and your emotional freedom, to create a marriage that honors both your humanity and hers. The first step is recognition, understanding the invisible pressures, the silent sacrifices, and the quiet suffering that has shaped your life, and refusing to let them define your future. The next step is action, speaking up, setting boundaries, nurturing your dreams, and seeking support when you need it. Life is not meant to be endured silently. It is meant to be experienced fully, with courage, clarity, and connection. And while the journey is challenging, you are not alone. Thousands of men share the same struggles, the same quiet frustrations, and the same yearning to feel alive and respected in their marriages. You are simply unheard, and today that changes. If this video spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit like, share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more raw, real talk that speaks directly to men like you. Men who are ready to reclaim their identity, their voice, and their freedom. By taking action, by acknowledging the struggle, and refusing to accept invisibility, you begin to transform your life and your marriage from one of silent suffering into one of partnership, passion, and mutual respect. You deserve more than silent endurance. You deserve to be seen, to be valued, and to live fully. This is your moment to reclaim yourself, to stop carrying the invisible burdens alone, and to step into a life where honesty, connection, and purpose define your marriage, your manhood, and your future.